Erev Tov, Shana Tova, Good Yantiv, Shabbat Shalom. Anything else? When my mother was pregnant with my younger brother, she had all kinds of health concerns, and she ended up having to spend almost the entire 9 months on her back in the hospital. And she'd attended an art school in Manhattan years before, and before she made Aliyah. And she had an art studio in our home in Jerusalem where she painted. And she was a very creative person. So one of her ways of passing the time during those endless months in the hospital was to do art projects. And during those months, as she was thinking ahead to her boys growing up, she created a religious game, a spiritual game, religious game, board game, wonderfully illustrated and thought, and we ended up playing through many years. And so everybody would have to pick what path they would do, if it was a path of gmilut chasadim, of good deeds, or a path of a heart, or a path of the mind. And you put your markers up the Kabbalistic tree of life. And there was a time to visit the sick in the hospital for Bikur Cholim. And sometimes you got sent to personality prison when you got the wrong kind of card. And you could take an uplifting walk in nature. And there was this area of the board, and it was called the burning ground. And it was a place you went to. You would have to pay a few chips into the rainbow pot. But it's where you were meant to go to burn away the old and to usher in the new parts. Always thought she should market this game. But she also wrote a song that went with it, that you would sing when we landed on one of these squares of the burning ground. And this is only some of it, but it was, tests and trials are pushed at you, the flames are pressing, but the work is progressing. In joyful expectation, the blast of a horn, a new you is born. We always look forward to the first person to fall on those squares so that one of us could say, the blare of a horn, a new you is born. Very Dr. Seuss-like. But this is what Erev Rosh Hashanah is about. We're waiting on the cusp of a new year. And the Rosh Hashanah prayer, Hayom Harat Olam, which is often translated, today is the birthday of the world. But more literally, the Hebrew word actually means, today the world is in gestation. Right? Just like as we read tomorrow in the Torah, in the story of Abraham and Sarah, and in her old age, she's pregnant with Isaac, the miraculous son who will transform everything, their lives, who will bring new energy to the tribe and take them forward. And so we have this belief that in this moment, on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, at the very beginning of the holidays, the whole world, internally and even externally, is in flux. It's being reborn. And the Psalms speak of the great beauty of all of nature following all the cycles of the year and all the cycles of time set by the Creator, all of nature. But the new year is being revealed, and the shofar is being sounded. And there's a real great joy in that unfolding every year as we come to it. Despite knowing it comes every year, there's a great joy to coming to a new beginning. And it's a little bit like the joy we'll be reading tomorrow of Sarah, who gives birth to Isaac in her 90s and says, God has brought me laughter. Everyone who hears me is going to laugh at me. Who would have said to Abraham and Sarah with suckled children, yet I have borne a son in his old age? So it's the joy of unexpected, the joy of the miraculous, and also the joy and the comfort of seasons passing, as we have all been feeling over the last week, seasons passing. And it's why it's not just called the New Year, but it's called Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. Because we're gifted a new Rosh, a new head, a new start. And there's a feeling of cosmic rebirth and realignment, and in the Zohar there's these wonderful images of the divine forces, male and female, aligning on this day. And then over the next days, going into Yom Kippur and Sukkot, walking on the path together, bringing rebirth, bringing renewal to the whole world, to all of us. So the whole world is in motion. And this is the moment where it's all reborn, a new reality beginning to expand. A completely different new year. Please God, for our world. A truly new beginning. It's a little bit like when we were children, and every school year is completely different, right? It's when they ring that first school bell at the beginning of the year, at the start of fall, we don't know really what's ahead. So both my children started at Lincoln Elementary in River Forest this year. My daughter Shalva is second grade, and my son Adir is in kindergarten. And so those first few days are always so new. You never know what it's like, what their teacher is like, what the classmates will be like, what the year will be like. A new journey of experience and discovering. And I remember myself from childhood wondering, what will the new year bring? What friendships will develop? How will I engage with all the different aspects of the year ahead, being in a new class, from new academic challenges to our own world, growing, developing, a new age, being apart from everyone else over the summer. And it always felt like a fresh chance to really look and try and work on those things that were always passing in and out of our minds. It's why the Hasidic master Levi Yitzchak Berdichev, he says that Rosh Hashanah is between seasons. It's right after the fullness of the summer, after everything has reached its peak in the summer months, and right as that peak is beginning to shift into a whole new season, that's when Rosh Hashanah comes, because it's making the way for a new beginning. It emerges out of the end of all that fullness. And so as we begin to go into fall and winter, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak says, that's our moment where we have to take a deep leap into the unknown. Because there are possibilities, and there are challenges, and there are opportunities to consider, but it all begins now. It all begins on Rosh Hashanah Eve. And so Rosh Hashanah is also called Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, because it sets the tone for the whole year. It's just like the head guides and directs the body. And it creates the first grooves, allows us to set the intention, where we're going, what we want it to be about, our year to be about. It's always a unique and interesting fact about our Jewish calendar, always causes confusion, that our Jewish day, right, starts at night. It doesn't start at when the sun rises at dawn or at midnight, like in our secular calendar, but it starts always in the evening. And it mirrors, right, the story of creation. God called the light day and the darkness night, and there was evening and there was morning the first day. Or God called the dry land earth and called the gathering of the water seas, and God saw that it was good. And God said, let the earth sprout vegetation, seed-bearing plants, fruit trees of every kind on earth, the bear fruit of the seed in it, and it was so. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and then there was morning the third day. God created the luminaries, and there was evening, and there was morning the fourth day. Not what would seem intuitive to us, that the evening always comes first, and then the morning follows. But the medieval sage, Nachmanides Ramban, from Girona, Spain, teaches that the word for evening, Erev, comes from the word for mingling, to mingle, an Eruv, a mingling. And that the mingling for people always happens in the evening, right? That's when we begin to let all of our thoughts and the shape of things that are still in flux, are still hidden, still mingling. And the morning is called boker, from the word levaker, which means to examine, because that's when you can see things clearly, take in the details and discriminate. But the evening is a gestation, it's where it starts. And it begins that process of transformation that ushers in the new you, the new us. I remember one of the most important decisions of my childhood was told to me one night as we were walking home from our neighborhood in Jerusalem, and we're walking across to our apartment block in French Hill. And I was 6, 7 years old, and my parents told me we were going to move to Tzarfat, France. I remember looking up at the stars and wondering, where is Tzarfat? Where is France? And I had no idea, but a new beginning was just beginning to unfold in my life. And so on this evening of Rosh Hashanah, that new beginning, the energy, the consciousness of a new year is coming in, flowing in. And then all of Rosh Hashanah and the Chagim and the time ahead is about preparing to receive the new reality. And taking time to really think about the coming year and what's it going to be about for me, for us, and where will it take me, where will it take our families, and where do we want it to go, what are its bounds, its vision, its dangers. It's a joyful but also a serious moment, and it asks of us, are we ready, are we connected to what's happening at this moment? And so when Abraham and Sarah are informed that a son will be born to them, which is read before our reading tomorrow, Rosh Hashanah Day 1 reading, there's an element of a divine test in it. Because will they recognize the miracle, the grandeur of the moment? And so 3 strangers approach the tent of Abraham in the heat of the day. And Abraham looks not once, but he looks again. And then he sees these are not regular strangers, and he realizes they're divine visitors, and this is not every day. And he perceives this is a day that could change their lives. So he rushes to greet them, and despite being sick, according to the Midrash, despite his ill health, his weakness, he rushes to wash their feet, and he offers them a meal, and the whole household is running to make it happen. And that's when they inform him of the great change that's about to happen in their lives. That at the same time next year, a son will finally be born to them at such an age. And when Sarah hears about it, and she's on the other side of the tent, and she finds the thought of having a son at her age pretty funny, and she laughs out loud. But the divine visitors, they hear her and they say, "Why is Sarah laughing?" And so we too have to believe in the transformation. We have to believe when things are changing in our lives. And really all the aspects of the holiday, all the rituals, the apples and honey, the shofar, the grand liturgy about the sovereign, the fasting on Yom Kippur, taking days off work, days from school, staying home from school, coming to synagogue, being all together. Part of it's just to make us aware of what is happening within so that we can have a new beginning. This is not just another day, not just another week, not even another holiday, but there's really you can seize it, a cosmic revolution. Today a new world is born. But this great birth requires partnership in the alignment of thought and speech and action. Right? This is the order that the Hasidic tradition and the rabbis understood that human beings operate in. Right? It begins with that mingling of thought, the Erev. It turns into clearer internal words, and then to speech, and finally to action. So Rosh Hashanah Eve is about gathering those thoughts in our consciousness, thoughts about the new year for us and our families, about the right direction that it needs to take. And then there is that opportunity for the new beginning. How will we approach it? And it's about our professional lives, our interests, it's about our relationships, where we want to be with them, all of them, taking care of our own health, taking care of our own well-being. What do we want to do with all of it? There's also the opportunity for everything that came before to be cleared away and to really come into a totally new frame of mind. There's a couple I know who struggled for 15 years to have children or more. And they bought homes and then ended up selling them. And there was such a weight on their shoulders. And then finally it happened to them, and they had a child. And it wasn't long after, they looked like completely new people. They were transformed. It was something to behold. And so we believe that Rosh Hashanah in the new year is a chance to have something really new happen, to even transcend from all those things that hold us back, to block us from where we want to go, that of course have to be dealt with, but there's a chance to transcend them if we have the right energy and positivity and enthusiasm and the divine assistance. As a young person, I traveled many times to different countries, as most of you know, and by the time I was 25, I'd lived in Israel and France and India and England and Canada. Remember, every time I moved, I had that sensation of a new life, right? Different opportunities, different struggles, different consciousness, right? Both challenges and opportunities every time, very different. So right now, Torah reading tomorrow, a son is born to Sarah, Right? The whole world is suddenly smiling for them. The whole world has changed. They've got their son. But it's not long after Isaac is weaned, troubles begin to arise straight away between him and Ishmael, and a whole new struggle develops, a whole new situation, because Ishmael, the firstborn, is perhaps jealous of Isaac and playing rough with him, and so it creates turmoil. And Abraham goes through this horrible crisis where he has to banish his concubine Hagar and her son Ishmael. But even there's like a new opportunity to unfold within that new situation, amidst all the struggle, amidst all of it, even among the difficulty. And Ishmael eventually is cast away, but he also is given a promise, even though his life has been turned upside down, that he too will be a head of nations, and there'll be a father of nations, of peoples, of princes. So every year we experience our reality shifting, and a new year comes for us and for all the world. And so the shofar blast comes and tries to wake us up a little bit, as Maimonides says it means, awake, awake, you slumberers. And it's telling us to wake up and realize that a new us is being born. We want to be awake and not asleep when that's happening. We want to be alert and present and not unconscious and vague. So we don't miss a great opportunity, but also so we can perceive those challenges ahead. And that's why we have this old superstition, right? That if you take a nap on Rosh Hashanah, don't do it because you'll have a sleepy year. Because you want to be alert of all the conditions as they're changing and evolving. And it's why we eat apples and honey, because we want to have a sweet year and hold on to that sweetness in our relationships and ourself and our thoughts for all the world. Or as the Talmud encourages us, maybe it's a good thing that the prevalent custom became apples and honey and not this one, that we should eat the head of a fish or the head of a ram, because we should have a good head of the year, or carrots, gezer in Hebrew, so we should have a good gzeirah, a good decree. And it's to remind us that what happens in this concentrated time can inform the rest of the year. It's where ideas are planted. And there's always new struggles, right? Those things that we put on the back burner for ages suddenly come to the fore. Some unexpected, others because of people in our life whom we love. We have this whole period to think about it all, to try and sort it out, to set ourselves right, and to be ready to receive the blessing of the new year. As the Unetane Tokef prayer proclaims, right, whom is going to be serene this year, and whom is going to be disturbed, and who's going to be at peace, and who's going to be troubled, and who's going to wander, and who will stay put. It's not always about going to a new direction, right? Sometimes new beginnings mean just staying put. There's a whole book out there that I recommend about the blessing of staying put, it's called. It's about making a home in a restless world. And sometimes we're aware of new doors open, but we decide to stay where we are. As individuals, as we go through all the different periods and the journeys of our lives, aware, what is the person that we're becoming? So again, striking in Abraham's life, he goes to Canaan and this big discovery, and then suddenly he arrives in Canaan and God says, well, now you have to go down to Egypt. So he goes down to Egypt with Sarah, and there things happen. Then he goes back to Canaan, and God says, well, you have to go back to Egypt, and then he goes back to Canaan. But through all of it, he finds new conditions and new wisdom. And finally he comes back and he resolves these long-standing disputes regarding water, the 7 wells of Beersheba with the chieftain Avimelech. And Avimelech recognizes this is a new Abraham, it's not the one from a few years ago. And so Rosh Hashanah is also that last opportunity that we have as we come on the eve to reflect on also the year that passed and everything we're leaving behind, and some of it's resolved and some of it's always unresolved. The year that we've been through, all it's taught us, where it's leading us, and the work that still needs to be done. And so every year we say goodbye to some really precious moments of people we love, with gratitude that we had them, with children and grandchildren, watching them grow up and flourish. And we watch as they too experience the gift of new beginnings. And then also we say a happy good riddance to some of those other struggles and difficulties, and sigh with relief that they're hopefully finally over. And so we pray for a good year, we pray for a better year and a better direction for ourselves and Israel and the world. And there's a timeless wisdom there. I go back to Abraham and Sarah a final time, about how to respond to the constant changes and challenges in our lives, and doing so with grace and understanding, and how to grow and evolve as we all face all the challenges along our journeys. Right, so over the year they changed so dramatically that God changes their name from Avram and Sarai to Abraham, and Sarai becomes Sarah. And we have this tradition in Judaism that when your life has changed so dramatically, and often it's because of severe illness, then you're given a new name, and it's even announced in front of a Torah, because we say a new name is a new mazal, a new mazel, a new luck, right? A new fate, a new destiny. And so just as we each individually sit on that cusp of a new year, we're also a whole people, we're also all of Israel facing a new year. And Israel facing perhaps the greatest challenge in the past 75 years of its existence, and certainly the greatest internal challenge they've ever known. And in our nation too, USA, the thought, how are we going to preserve calm? How are we going to preserve peace and civility as we look ahead to a year that's going to take us to a whole new set of elections? And so Erev, Rosh Hashanah, is when that first change comes flowing in, and we see those first glimpses, those first rays, the first taste, the first moment of inspiration. So each year on Rosh Hashanah, we also try and look inside of us, into our own hearts, and think, well, what do we want from this year? What is it that we really want? What is there in our hearts? And try and discover a little bit more. We understand that we have to catch some of that wind of the new beginning for it to really happen. We have to see those first rays. We have to look at the stars and be able to dream a little bit what the morning will bring. Believe in that new beginning. We have to believe that there is somewhere a higher power that's ushering it all in with a blast of the shofar, renewing the creation, changing the tide in all those places in our lives where we feel like we need to change the tide, surprising us with the incredible vivacity of life and of all of creation, and all those shifts to always propel us to new realities and new beginnings throughout our days. A new year that blesses us with unexpected challenges, but they'll give us the strength to deal with them and reinforce our faith in that journey, the school of life, the greatest adventure that we all go through. And a journey that we're also taught should be undertaken with a little joy and laughter as we listen to the blast of the horn, a journey with ups and downs, but they're also being counted and seen. As we say in the Unitarian Tokef prayer throughout the holidays, as a shepherd examines his flock, making each sheep pass under the staff, so you will review and number and count, judging every living being. And so with each new gestation, every new year, the shofar calls us up to a new beginning, and all that work that needs to be done. And so we're exhorted to create, to shepherd, to plant, to grow, to evolve. Go back to my opening story. So my mother was lying in bed, pregnant with my brother, and creating that wonderful game that I was talking about that contained all that Rebbitzin experience, right? Knowledge and humor. A new beginning was also being prepared for herself and for our family. And one day she was being overwhelmed by the whole saga of having to be in the hospital for longer than she thought and needing to lie down, all the fear of going to labor too early and losing the whole pregnancy. And it was all too much, and she had nothing left. And I was 5 years old, as I'm told, and looking at my mother, I must have somehow intuitively felt what she was going through. So I turned to her on one of those visits, and I said to her, "Ima, Mom, remember, keep your mind up." And so as we open to the new year, as we open to all the new possibilities, to the new doors, to the new paths, to a new us, our task is to keep our mind up. Because if we can hold on to that place of faith and aspiration, that's really when the spirit of a new beginning will sweep us up, carry us to possibilities we cannot even begin to imagine. Shana Tova.